My name's Evan. I'm 25, living in a small apartment just outside Denver, Colorado. Freelance coding keeps me fed and my fridge stocked. Mostly front-end gigs for startups that can't afford a full-time team. It's not glamorous, but it works. Most days, life boils down to code, coffee, and maybe a run if I'm feeling motivated. My circle isn't huge, just a few close friends. Like Noah. He's been my best friend since high school. The kind of guy who can make you laugh even when the day's been hell. Noah's mom, Grace, is a different story. She's 43, works as an administrative manager at a logistics company downtown. I've known her my whole life, but always from a distance. She's not the cookie-baking, frumpy type you imagine when someone says mom. Grace carries herself with a quiet strength, sharp confidence, the kind of person who's seen hard things and come out stronger. A former army nurse, she moves through the world like nothing catches her off guard. I've always kept my distance, not because she's intimidating, but because she's Noah's mom. That's a line you don't cross. Last weekend, Noah dragged me into a company camping trip his mom's firm was hosting. A 2-day trek in the Rockies. It's just some light hiking, he said, tossing me a spare backpack. Mom's going too. You in? I wasn't thrilled. Deadlines were piling up, but I hadn't left the city in months, and the idea of fresh air sounded better than another Netflix binge. So I packed a bag, threw in some granola bars, and met them at the trailhead Saturday morning. The group was small, maybe 10 people. Mostly Grace's co-workers, middle-aged office types with brand new hiking gear. Noah and I stuck out like sore thumbs. Younger, a little out of place. Grace led the pack, setting a steady, no-nonsense pace. She wore a fitted jacket, cargo pants, hair pulled into a tight ponytail. She'd pause now and then to point out a trail marker or check everyone's water like she was still in nurse mode, making sure no one collapsed. The drive up winding through pine-covered hills ended at the base camp, a clearing with a fire pit and a view of snow-capped peaks. The air smelled crisp, of sap and damp earth. The plan was simple. Set up tents, hike a few miles to a lookout point, and return for dinner. Noah and I, feeling restless, tossed a frisbee while the group unpacked. Grace caught my eye once and gave a small half-smile as she adjusted her pack. "You boys keeping up?" she called, voice light but edged with authority. I grinned and shrugged. By mid-afternoon, we split into smaller groups for the hike. Noah got stuck talking to a chatty coworker, so I ended up walking with Grace and a guy named Logan, an accountant more interested in his phone than the scenery. Grace led the way, pointing out deer tracks, wildflowers, her voice calm but carrying quiet enthusiasm. I didn't say much, just nodded, listening. There was something about her. The way she moved as if the forest were her element. The clouds rolled in heavy and gray. The air thickened with that damp smell before a storm. Grace frowned at her watch. "We should head back soon. Rain's coming." Logan grumbled about his new boots, but I welcomed the challenge. Little did I know, this hike was about to turn into a story I'd never forget. The forest was alive with sounds. Birds calling, leaves rustling, the distant crackle of pine needles underfoot. Grace moved effortlessly ahead, scanning the path, checking the others without being overbearing. I found myself noticing the little things. The subtle strength in her stride, the way her eyes flicked to everything, assessing, always aware. It wasn't intimidating, it was magnetic. Logan tried to make small talk, asking about my coding work, but he mostly muttered to himself, fiddling with his phone. I stayed quiet, letting Grace lead, absorbing the forest, the crisp mountain air, the faint scent of wet pine and earth after the morning dew. There was a rhythm to her movements that made me feel like I was following someone completely in control, yet not controlling me. Noah and I had always joked that Grace seemed untouchable, even from across a room. Here, out in the open, that image didn't change. If anything, it intensified. There was something raw and real about her confidence. By mid-afternoon, the hike picked up pace. The trail rolled through thick groves of pine, sunlight streaking through in golden beams. Noah's voice drifted faintly behind us, lost in chatter. But it didn't matter. It was just us in the forest. Grace pointed out a deer track. "See the indentation? 2 front hooves close together. Probably moved through here last night." Logan glanced briefly, uninterested. I nodded, feeling more connected to her than I wanted to admit. A small creek cut across the trail, the water icy and clear. Grace stopped to test the crossing, ensuring everyone else could navigate it safely. I watched her, captivated by how natural she was in every movement. She didn't flinch, didn't complain, didn't show hesitation. Every step was deliberate, confident. I realized I was holding my breath, unconsciously following her rhythm. We joked a little, teasing Grace about being too perfect. She shot me a quick smile. eyes crinkling, and I had to look away before I overthought it. It was just a smile, nothing more, probably. As the afternoon stretched, the clouds grew darker, a faint chill settling in. Grace checked her watch again. Let's keep moving. Could rain any minute. She started picking up the pace, not rushing, just flowing forward. I matched her stride, feeling a strange combination of respect and something else, something I hadn't felt before. The trail led us to a small ridge. From here, the mountains sprawled endlessly, pine and rock stretching toward the horizon. The wind picked up, carrying with it the scent of impending rain. Grace paused to take it all in, and I did too, quietly. For a moment, the world narrowed to this ridge, this forest, and the quiet company of someone who felt larger than life. We moved on, descending slowly into a shaded valley. The first drops of rain splattered on leaves. Grace adjusted her jacket and glanced back at me. Keep your eyes on the trail, Evan. Slippery here. Her tone wasn't harsh, just commanding in a way that made me obey without thinking. Logan slipped once, cursing under his breath. I caught him before he fell, and Grace gave a quick nod of approval. Good, always watch each other, she said, voice calm. There was no panic in her, even as the rain thickened. By the time we reached a narrow clearing, the storm was rolling in fully. The wind picked up, bending trees, and the first real sheets of rain poured down. The rest of the group had scattered slightly, trying to find cover. Grace stayed focused, moving deliberately, eyes scanning the path, making decisions with a certainty that made me feel grounded, even as the storm raged. I realized I had been following her lead for hours, trusting her instinct without question. It wasn't just respect. It was something more primal. Safety, maybe. Comfort. Something I didn't have words for yet. We found a small rock outcrop to regroup, catching our breath. Grace glanced at me, half smile on her face, water dripping from her ponytail. You're keeping up, she said, voice light, but edged with that same authority. I laughed, breath catching, trying to. Barely. The forest around us was alive with thunder and wind, the rain hammering the ground, rivers forming in the trails. Grace didn't flinch. She just adjusted her pack, checked everyone's footing, and moved forward with a calm precision that made the storm feel manageable. The camp cleared out slowly, with everyone hustling to set up tents and gather firewood. Noah ran ahead to help some co-workers, leaving me walking beside Grace and Logan. The rain had started as a drizzle, then thickened into sheets that clung to jackets and hats. Logan complained under his breath about wet gear, but Grace didn't respond. She just kept moving forward, eyes scanning, mind calculating. I admired her focus. There was no panic, no overreaction, only clarity. I tried making small talk, but the words stumbled out awkwardly. Grace noticed, as she always did. She shot me a glance over her shoulder, ponytail swinging in the rain. Keep talking, she said, voice dry but teasing. Distract yourself or you'll freeze up. I laughed, the sound sharp in the wet quiet. Distract myself? You make it sound like I'm a rookie. She smirked, just the smallest hint, and turned her attention back to the trail. It hit me harder than it should have. I wanted to say more, but the words didn't come. There was something about the way she moved, how she commanded attention without demanding it, that made me feel exposed. Not in a bad way, just aware. By the time we reached the base camp clearing, the air was thick with mist and rain. The fire pit sat empty, the logs damp, smoke rising in ghostly curls. Grace didn't hesitate. She began directing everyone, checking that the tents were secure, that the gear was organized, and that no one was struggling. Her calm authority turned chaos into order. Night fell faster than expected. Thunder rolled in the distance, low and menacing. The rain pounded against tents, turning the ground into a slick mess of mud. Inside the clearing, the group huddled together under tarps, trying to stay dry. Grace moved between everyone, checking hands, boots, and jackets, making sure no one was left exposed. I found a spot near the fire pit, leaning against a tree. Grace appeared beside me, jacket dripping. "You're staying awake?" she asked. "Of course," I said, teeth chattering. "Good," she replied with a faint smile. "Storms teach you a lot if you're willing to watch." The night passed in fits of sleep, interrupted by rain and thunder. I drifted in and out, images of Grace's calm face, wet ponytail, and steady eyes lingering in my mind. By morning, the storm had left the forest sparkling, damp, alive. The group packed slowly, careful of the slick mud. Grace led, checking everyone, offering guidance with quiet authority. Even soaked and exhausted, she moved like she owned the forest. We had survived the storm, bonded through laughter, teasing, and careful observation. Something unspoken had shifted between us, a quiet trust, a mutual awareness, and just as we were starting to relax, the next challenge was about to appear. The morning air was thick with mist, rain still dripping from the pines. Grace and I were packing gear when a sharp hiss sliced through the clearing. I froze, scanning the wet underbrush. My stomach sank as I noticed the black and yellow pattern of a rattlesnake coiled near Grace's boot. "Evan." Her voice was calm but clipped, a warning. She shifted back instinctively, but the snake struck fast. A sharp pain lanced through her calf and she stumbled, clutching her leg. "Grace!" I yelled, rushing to her side. Panic clawed at my chest. She sank to the ground, steadying herself against a tree. Blood was seeping through her pants, dark and urgent. "Stay calm," she gasped, her training as a former army nurse kicking in. "Just don't move me too much." I looked around. The rest of the group had scattered slightly, still shaken by the storm's aftermath. Logan hovered uselessly, eyes wide. "You need to get the venom out," Grace said, wincing. Her gaze locked on mine. "Do it carefully." "I trust you." My hands shook, but I followed her instructions. I tore a strip of cloth from her jacket and applied pressure around the bite, slowing the spread of venom. She stayed focused, instructing me calmly, reminding me to keep her talking, to maintain eye contact. "Talk to me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Anything. Your favorite memory, a joke, whatever." She chuckled, faint and strained. "You really think I'll panic with you here?" Her eyes gleamed with that familiar sharpness, even through the pain. Minutes stretched, tense and excruciating. Every second mattered. I stayed close, holding her hand, guiding her breath, keeping her conscious. Grace's trust grounded me, gave me the focus I desperately needed. When the bleeding slowed and the venom seemed contained, we faced the next challenge, moving her to shelter. The forest floor was slick with mud, roots hidden beneath wet leaves. I half-carried her, one arm under her shoulders, supporting her weight as we inched toward a rocky overhang I had spotted earlier. The storm continued to rage, wind and rain hammering the trees. Lightning flashed, illuminating the forest in stark white bursts. Grace leaned against me, shivering but still alert. "You're doing fine," she whispered, almost teasing. "Most people would have panicked." "I can't leave you," I said, my voice rough with adrenaline. "We'll make it." Eventually we reached the rocky overhang. It wasn't much, barely deep enough to block the wind and rain, but it was shelter. I eased her down, careful not to jostle her leg. She leaned against the stone, exhausted but still holding my gaze. I pulled the emergency poncho from my pack, draping it over both of us. Her shivering slowed as I wrapped an arm around her, grounding her with warmth and presence. Survival wasn't just physical now. It was about staying awake, staying alert, staying connected. We talked through the night. I rambled about coding projects, past camping trips, anything to keep her awake and conscious. Grace responded occasionally, voice soft but sharp, teasing or serious depending on her energy. It wasn't romantic. Not yet. Just raw, human connection under extreme circumstances. By dawn, the storm eased to a drizzle. Mist clung to the trees and the forest smelled clean, wet, alive. Grace's breathing was steadier now, though her leg remained weak. I scanned the surroundings, hoping for any sign of the rescue team. A faint shout echoed in the distance. Flashlights flickered through the mist. Relief surged through me. I waved my arms, hoping to catch their attention, tying a bright bandana to a nearby branch. Within minutes, park rangers and a few co-workers arrived. Noah ran first, panic etched on his face, and then the medics. Grace was checked, stabilized, and strapped to a stretcher. Her eyes met mine one last time before they carried her away. "Thank you," she mouthed. Faint but clear. I nodded, my throat tight, watching as she disappeared down the trail. At the hospital, she was stable. The anti-venom had worked. Her vitals were steady. The doctor confirmed it. Without immediate intervention, it could have been far worse. I stayed quiet in the waiting room, the memory of holding her through the storm and guiding her through the venom pressing heavily in my chest. Later, when visitors were allowed, I slipped into her room. Grace was propped up, IV in her arm, hair loose and damp from the hospital wash. "You didn't have to stay," she said, voice stronger now, faint smile tugging at her lips. "I wanted to," I replied. "You did more than that," she said. "Most would have run." Her fingers brushed mine, deliberate and grounding. I felt the weight of that night, the trust she placed in me, and something unspoken between us shifted. It wasn't just survival, it was connection. 2 weeks later, life returned to its normal rhythm, though the memory lingered. Then a text from Grace. "Cooper misses you. If you're free, you know where to find us." Cooper, her scruffy golden retriever, bounded toward me when I arrived. Grace watched from the porch, hair down, jeans and sweater, softer than ever. "Hey," she said. Not the sharp, confident leader from the trailhead, just her. We walked to a nearby park, tossing Cooper's ball, sharing quiet, charged moments of conversation. Words were sparse but weighted. When it was time to leave, she touched my arm. Light, deliberate. "Come back anytime. Cooper's not the only one who'd like that." I nodded, chest warm, driving home under a clear sky that felt almost unreal. Whatever this was between us, it wasn't finished. Not yet,